This movie is incredible. What is your green light? What does the green light represent? Something about Rich Leo just hits. What's up, guys? I'm back at it again with another video. Another Leonardo DiCaprio movie. It's been a little bit, so if it's not obvious, we are going to be reviewing The Great Gatsby. Not the musical, The Great Gatsby, the movie. And my hair is blonde and it goes with the gold theme. Please like and subscribe, it is totally free. If you subscribe, I can get some money. Let's be a family. The reason why I decided to watch The Great Gatsby is I feel like the last 10 movies he's made have been like super critically acclaimed and like very good. And I'm like, let me just kind of like blindly look at which one I should watch next. And I thought about The Great Gatsby. The Great Gatsby is a book that many Americans read when they're in high school, and I'm no exception. What I remember from it, though, I remember liking it very much, written by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I remember liking it, but I don't remember like a lot of the ending, which when I watched the movie, I was pretty like, oh my gosh, I forgot about all of this. But basically, The Great Gatsby is set in the 1920s. This was right after World War I, so there was kind of an economic boom, if you will. And women were a little bit more liberated. We can see it in the outfits, the way they dress, the way they dance. Before, it was very traditional dancing, waltz and foxtrot and things like that. And now we're in the jazz age. The jazz era. This was also in the Prohibition era. Can you imagine America without legalized alcohol? Like, we see it everywhere now, and it's just amazing how there was a time where it was illegal. People who sold undercover, basically like drug dealing now, people who sold undercover alcohol were called bootleggers. I'm telling you this because this is important to the story. So this is kind of the time we're in, you know. Is the American dream possible? This is a big question that this book tackles with. Do you get to live the American dream by scheming your way to the top, or is it really attainable to just work your way up there? And that's a question that it's kind of clear what the author believes, but you can have your own opinion by the end. So I was always intrigued about The Great Gatsby until I realized that the 2013 version was directed by Baz Luhrmann. Now, Baz Luhrmann is a very specific director. His style of directing is very like over the top, quirky, very much like a lot. And it's interesting that he has that in his arsenal, but he uses it all the time, if that makes sense. Like, you can tone it down a bit, but with The Great Gatsby, you can't turn it down a bit. This is such an extravagant, wealthy time that he was actually the perfect director for this movie. So the movie starts with Nick, our character. He is the narrator throughout this whole thing. So we see all these characters through his eyes, which I thought, you know, I heard that it's hard to do that on stage and on screen when you have a narrator, but I just thought the way that they had it was perfect. He's in therapy and he's writing about his experience. So the story is basically told in flashback, which is a great way to make it okay for him to just be talking to us and not showing us everything, right? So he starts about how this particular summer he went to New York, basically to be an accountant or something, and he buys this cottage that's literally like smothered right in between a bunch of mansions, right? So he doesn't have money, But it was kind of like a vacation spot. His cousin Daisy married this very rich man, so he's like, oh, I can meet her while I'm there. This character is played by Carey Mulligan, which every time I see a Carey Mulligan performance, I'm just like, wow, she's one of the best. Like, I just have seen her in Maestro recently, and she has to play a totally different person in Maestro than she plays in The Great Gatsby. And I was like, I don't know if she'll pull this off, but the frailty that she portrays is just incredible to me. But neither here nor there. We're at the dinner, and it's very clear that she's not happy in this relationship. Tom's mistress literally calls in the middle of the dinner, like, it's embarrassing. But you can tell that she's not going to retaliate. So it's very much one of those relationships where it's like, they know the man is cheating, but they don't want to leave him, you know. We have another friend. What is her name? Is it Jordan? Who's kind of like, she's the BS meter for everything. She knows what's going on between them, but she's like, I'm just gonna give it to you straight, you know. So they've talked about this guy named Jay Gatsby. He is who Nick is living beside, and he throws these extravagant parties all the time, and everyone from everywhere comes to these parties. And when he says his name, there's that like moment of like, with Daisy, of like remembrance, right? And so we know, okay, there's something going on there. And then she says that quote about the best thing a girl can be is a beautiful little fool, which I'm not a fan of that line, but it is what it is. But we see the green light on her dock, and then we push into Jay Gatsby and how he's always looking at this green light. But we don't really understand the significance of it at that point. And up to this point, it's almost as if Daisy has no idea. Like, first of all, she didn't know he was alive. Second of all, she didn't know he was the one throwing the parties. But it's right across from you. Like, I don't know how she didn't know that was him, how she didn't know about his parties, but she just is pretty oblivious. Clearly in this world of like, you can tell that she doesn't really leave the house. Her and Tom have just had a baby daughter. She's clearly like miserable. The next day, Tom takes Nick to the city, just kind of as like a good boy, you know, let's hang out as men. And he drives past a mini gas station, right? And of course Nick is thinking nothing of it, like, we're just gonna get gas. They end up in like some apartment, and Nick is like, what is going on? Like, I thought we were doing something else, but why are we at this apartment? And the guy who gives Tom gas, Myrtle, his wife Myrtle, is having an affair with Tom. So of course the other husband doesn't know. This is like a broke, you know, struggling to do man. And Myrtle finds some way to sneak out and goes to this little apartment party. And now he knows that Tom is cheating with Myrtle on Daisy, and kind of makes a mental note of that to like, I don't know if he wants to get revenge, but he's like, okay, this is not a good guy, and you know, I can't believe I'm gonna have to like keep the secret, kind of bro code. So we go to the party, one of these extravagant parties. Literally Baz Luhrmann's like one really good trick, right? He has this extravagant way to his films, and it's perfect for this film, especially for this party scene. And we are about 30 minutes in and have not really seen Gatsby speak. Throughout this time, we see him as kind of this creepy, mysterious guy. He's so enigmatic. And when Nick is like looking around like, guys, I have this invitation, where's Gatsby? A lot of people are like, Gatsby isn't even real. He's a murderer. He's a military man. He's an Oxford man. There's so many rumors about this Jay Gatsby guy. A lot of people haven't seen him. He's just so mysterious. But at this party, Gatsby makes himself known to Nick, and he's like, hello. Which it's this really big slow motion moment that it's become this huge meme, so I'm sure you've seen. But I love stories where like the main character or should be the main character, the titular character, doesn't really become an important character till later in the movie or even at the end. It just makes them so, like, it's cool to be able to have them walk in and you feel like you know so much about him or have heard so much about him. I think of A Streetcar Named Desire. I think of Julius Caesar. I think of that's where I'm ending my examples. But like Gatsby finally comes in after being talked about so much. So they meet for the first time, and Gatsby is really trying to sell himself to make him look really good for Nick. And it makes you wonder why. Is he just a show off, or is he really trying to like impress Nick for some reason? And it is the latter. Leo as Jay Gatsby, he has this calm confidence to him, which I love. And I'll talk more about his performance a little later. But yeah, he's trying to impress him. Everyone is trying to question how Jay has made his money, because he basically was an unknown, and then at some point he becomes like the wealthiest man in Long Island. So there's always these like stories of like, is he associated with a bootlegger? Is he a gambler? Did he come from wealth? Like, what is this guy's story? How does he have this much money and live in this palace alone? And every time Jay and Nick kind of have a conversation, or even every time Jay is in having screen time, some weird guy comes to him and like whispers in his ear, and he's like, blah 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 needs to talk to you. Like there's always business going around Jay, but it just always seems like shady business. So adding on to what I'm saying about Jay trying to get Nick to be impressed with him, he takes him out to lunch, and he drives this yellow car. I forgot what it's called, but this like yellow Corvette looking, but I know it's not a Corvette car, and he is driving crazy. Like he is driving Nick into town, but this is a time where like to have a car was luxury, and only the wealthiest of wealthy drove a car. So this was before there were stop signs, this is before there were traffic lights, this is before there was actual like rules of the road. They had lanes, but you know, it was just kind of like a free-for-all, and a lot of people died by getting hit by cars because there were just there were no pedestrian rules, there was no crosswalks, none of that. So he's driving crazy and telling Nick, you know, I was a military man, I went to Oxford because my family went to Oxford, and we are Oxford people, and we're an Oxford family, and just like clearly lying. But you know, he's so charming that Nick he wants to believe him. And they go to this underground like tavern club thing. It was a bar, but it was like underground bar, and Nick meets Gatsby's shady friends. Like he meets the guy who fixed the 1919 World Series, and just not Nick's scene at all, and he's just trying to figure out like, what does Jay Gatsby want with me? Like, what is the deal? And then soon enough it finally gets revealed that he just wants Nick to set up a tea with Daisy and Jay. The story is that Jay was a soldier, and they met, fell in love, but when he went to war, he came back, and Daisy was married to the rich Tom, you know. So in his mind, he never had a real shot. Like he had to go to war, but he'll always remember what they had, and he's like, I have to get her back. So he basically has made himself so wealthy through all these parties, hoping that Daisy would walk in the room and they would rekindle their fire.
I've done it all for her.
He he's not someone who's gonna go pursue Daisy in her life. You know, he doesn't want Tom involved, really. He wants Daisy to come to him and to show her the world and show her what he's made for himself, because surely she only married Tom because he was rich and because Gatsby was out of the picture. But you know, that's kind of why this is also known as a romance film, because this man is so in love with her that he was willing to make it his life's work to be with her. It borderlines obsession. It is obsession, but it also is this love and devotion for this woman. Well, remember I told you that Tom is cheating on Daisy and Nick knows about it. So Nick is like, you know what? I'm just going to set it up. You know, what's the worst that can happen? I'm going to make sure that Jay gets his shot at rekindling with Daisy. So they have the tea scene, and this is why Leonardo's such an incredible actor, because this is such a heavy situation for him because he's so nervous. Like, this is the first time we see him lose his cool, and up to this point, like I said, he's been this mysterious, very like put together wealthy man, and he just loses his cool. I'm not going to go into everything because I really want you guys to see it. I feel like it's just so funny how nervous he is, how just Daisy just rips him down to his bare bones. And then they see each other again and they're just like, they can't even speak, because she apparently didn't know he was alive, apparently didn't know he was in her vicinity. And it's just kind of like that look. There's so much to say, but words can't even express how I feel right now. So of course he takes her to the mansion and basically is like, this is all for you. And he has their old letters and old pictures, and she gets emotional because she's like, if anything could have been different, everything would have been different. And I wish, she does say, I wish I would have done everything with you. And you know, as a director, if I can make any changes to this film, because I honestly think it's a perfect film. I love this movie. 5 years. I mean, it's not up to the film. Clearly that was the writing that they had to go off of, but like, if I can make any changes to the story, like 5 years, the way they look at each other and the longing, let's put that to 15 years. What happens if 15 years go by and she doesn't know he's alive and he doesn't know if she'll ever be back in his grasp? That is more enticing than just 5 years. So at this point, it's revealed that Jay Gatsby was once James Gatz or something like that, and he didn't grow up with a wealthy family. He grew up with a dirt poor family that he never considered his own. To him, he was gonna make it big, and he truly is like self-made man. He didn't really get any handouts to him. He really had to build himself up. So Daisy finally goes to one of Gatsby's parties, but she goes with Tom, and this is kind of perfect because Jay wants to show off everything. He wants it to be known that like, I am rich, I can do all this for you, we can have parties every night, you know. He's showing off for Daisy, but he's also showing off for Tom, just so Tom knows that they're on the same level, they're on a level playing field. So if what he believes is gonna happen will happen when he takes Daisy away, it's gonna be like, to society, it won't be weird because it'll be rich going to rich. Tom's not an idiot. He's like, okay, something is off about this guy and something's off about these two, but I don't like this guy. So he starts asking around, trying to figure out like, how did he get all this money? Because just something is not right with this man. And Jay finds his way to sneak Daisy away from Tom, and she tells him like, let's just run away, like no one's watching, let's just go away together. And you would think perfect getaway, makes sense, but no. Jay is like, no, we have to face it. To him, it's the noble thing to do, to tell Tom that she never loved him and to go, get married with the parents, and he wants the world to know. So it's Tom, Daisy, Gatsby, and Nick, and Jordan, but she's not really important right now. At Tom and Daisy's house, they're having a brunch, and this is where Gatsby was like, you have to tell him. Like, they're giving each other the look, Gatsby and Daisy. Like, he's like, this is our, like, we're going to tell everyone, we're gonna come out and we're gonna tell everyone, like, we are in love. And she's super hesitant. Like, he's like, okay, let's tell Tom so you can leave him. And she's just so hesitant. And it's like, oh crap. Like, she does not want to do this. And Gatsby tells Tom, she never loved you. We're running away. And Jay's like, tell him you never loved him. And she can't do it. She can't do it, guys. She's like, Jay, you want too much. This is the second time we've heard this notion. Like, Jay wants the cake and eat it too. He wants everything. And he's like, you have to tell him you never loved him, or basically this won't work. Like, I'm not gonna have half of you. And she's like, I love you, Jay. Isn't that enough? But of course I loved him once upon a time. Like, and she still loves him. I mean, she was still willing to leave him. I think we'll say she was still willing to say that she loved him. She was still willing to admit that, but he wants it all, and he is devastated, and he feels like everything he's ever worked for has been shot. And in the heat of this moment, Tom reveals that Gatsby has gotten all his earnings basically from illegal activity, from bootlegging, all of that. And it's just like, it stirs everything in Jay, and he finally explodes. This is a side of him that we've never seen before, and Daisy is devastated again, seeing him, and like mortified, horrified to see Jay explode and lose his cool. And they just can't go back from that, which is what Tom wanted. And he kind of says the line, I'm paraphrasing, but he's basically like, we are not the same. Tom tells this to Gatsby. We'll never be the same. Your wealth was attained. My wealth is blood. Blood from blood, and wealth from attaining is not the same. And you'll never be on my level. Just basically like a bully thing to say. He knows they're upset, and he's like, yeah, go ahead, Daisy, Gatsby, you guys drive back, because basically that'll be the last time we talk to each other. So Daisy runs to the car. He's running after her and trying to reconcile everything that has just happened. Then we cut to Myrtle, the chick who's having an affair with Tom. Her husband realizes that she's having an affair, and confronts her about it, and she freaks out and runs away into the street. And what happens? She gets hit by Gatsby's yellow car. Like I said, that was very common for people to die that way. And Myrtle dies, but Gatsby, his car, keeps going, doesn't stop, a hit and run. So there's all this commotion around Myrtle. The police are there, and Tom, Jordan, and Nick are driving behind. But I guess they were kind of far behind because they didn't see it happen. So they get there and they see all this commotion, and Tom's like, what happened? He sees Myrtle's body on the floor and is freaking out, but he can't show it. And we know he's the one she's having an affair with, but of course Myrtle's husband didn't know that. So ironically, Tom is comforting her husband, knowing that he's the reason why she ran out in the street in the first place. That is dramatic irony. Again, my English teachers will be very happy. Dramatic irony is when the audience knows something that the characters don't. So we know, this is crazy because he's the reason why she died, or she's the reason why she went out on the street and they had an argument. But again, Gatsby, gone. So Nick finds Gatsby in the bushes of his own home, and he's like, you coward, I can't believe you hit and run. She's dead. You can't just run from these things. And he's like, I know. And this is such an amazing moment. He's like, it was just so busy. She ran out in the street, and she was just so agitated. And he's like, she, who are you talking about? And it gets revealed that Daisy was the one driving and not Gatsby, and Daisy's the one that in fact killed Myrtle. And Nick is just like, oh my goodness. And Gatsby is like, I will take the fall for her. Like, don't ever tell anyone it was her. And I'm waiting for her. She'll come back to me, and we'll move on with our lives like nothing happened. But he's waiting for her. He's waiting, and he has this blind belief that she will come back to him. And Nick is like, she's not coming back. Like, she loves Tom. And it's just a tragedy, guys. And the worst part is that Myrtle's husband is out for revenge. And he thinks it was Gatsby who killed his wife because it was his car. And he ends up shooting Gatsby while Gatsby is waiting for Daisy. He kills Gatsby, and no one turns up to his funeral. No one turns up to his funeral. He had spent all this time attaining money that he never attained real meaningful relationships. Everyone just used him for his parties. No one wants to pay respect to him because they didn't know him. They didn't care about him. They cared about what he could do for them. And that's a crazy revelation in itself. But the irony is that, like, no one comes to his funeral, including Daisy. Daisy is packing up. She goes back to Tom, stays with Tom, is packing up to leave to go to some other town, to leave all this behind. So Tom is the one having the affair at Myrtle, and then she runs down the streets and dies, and Daisy's the one that killed Myrtle and gets off free. And they get off free and they hide in their money. And Nick is just like, wow, like, all Gatsby wanted was to be noble, was to get the girl of his dreams, but he didn't want her to run away from it. He wanted her to confront Tom. He got all this wealth just for her, and she's a snake for what she did. That little, like, whodunit ending is really interesting. Really, like, there's so many themes of wealth and obsession and the American dream, and if you can you really attain the American dream clean? You can, but, like, you know, at this time, who are the good guys, who are the bad guys? Having wealth from blood, you have all these connections, and you have people who are willing to literally defend you for murder, you know, cover up things, and then versus attaining your wealth by whatever means you do. Is it the same? All these questions all in this one story. The green light was a big thing we talked about in school, about, like, how the green light, is it an unattainable dream? What is your green light? What does the green light represent? I remember, like, having to do a whole essay on that, and it's a really good period piece to mark kind of how the times were back then. Incredibly entertaining. I hope you watch it. Out of all the movies that I've reviewed, this is the best one, I'm telling you. Now let's get to Mr. Leonardo DiCaprio. He has an accent in this movie, and I don't think he does accents great, but this kind of worked. As time went on in the movie, it warmed up to me. The old sport thing, you know, there's something about Leo being rich in movies. It's just giving. This feels like this was the role he was meant to play. I can't imagine anyone else playing this role. The duality of cool wealthy man, and then, like I said, that scene when he was just so uncool because he was so nervous, and just such like a, just if he becomes normal, how you can go from mysterious to that, just that duality was perfect. The way he balanced it, something about rich Leo just hits. This is definitely his best role that I've seen so far. I know Killers of the Flower Moon, man, it's hard, but this just feels like this was a role he was born to play. All right, thanks for listening to my review. I hope you guys watch the movie. It's incredible. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Peace, blessing, love you guys, and I'll see y'all soon.